Ed, you ready to go?
Meeting's called to order. Has the agenda been posted?
It has been posted.
Donnie, you want to take the roll?
Commissioner Getterman.
Present.
Betts.
Present.
Ashore.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
Fabricant.
Here.
Freeman. Hampton.
I'm here.
Hood.
Sorry, yes.
Johnson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
King. Pattison.
Here.
Reeson.
Here.
Schmitz.
Here.
Spike.
Here.
Stelk.
Here.
Swearer.
Here.
Teal.
Here.
And Wax.
Here. Guillermo, you had 10 seconds. You could have.
He was waiting outside the door.
Yeah, why rush it, right? Okay. Acceptance of the agenda. Your motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, now it's time for public comments. Does anybody wish to speak?
Yes, there is a card in front of you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Monica Brown, why don't you come on up here and tell us a little bit about why you're here?
Well, good morning. I'm here, I represent Signature Flight Support, one of the FBOs that's on the field. What I wanted to let the Commission know is that this weekend we're hosting an event called Flights Above Addiction. It's a tour that we're sponsoring on the West Coast. Flights Above Addiction is an art meets aviation program run by a Santa Barbara-based nonprofit. And what they do is they tour the country talking to youth of the counties about the problems of addiction and how addiction usually starts at a young age. What they do, the neat thing about their program is they fly in a white 172 aircraft, which will park in our hangar. We'd like to invite all of you to attend if you want to. Bring your kids, bring your grandkids. They get the opportunity to paint the aircraft and paint it with all the kind of fabulous designs that express hope for them. And it's a way to introduce kids to the fact that addiction does start young. It's a way for us to be committed as a company in our community to fighting addiction. The event will run from 9 a.m. till 12 in the hangar at 3200 Aviation Way. The airplane will be painted in there. We will have it air conditioned. If you do want to come, and we'd love to see some of you there. We'd probably ask you to come maybe, unless you're bringing young children with you to do the painting. If you come around 11 o'clock, that's when the presentations will start, where we will have some parents from the community who have actually lost children or young people to addiction, and they will do some speeches for us. The aircraft itself is really well worth seeing. Underneath the wings of the aircraft, they have painted on there all the names of the people from the communities that they've visited, that they've lost, and that's a permanent marker on the aircraft. The aircraft's obviously painted with washable paints. It will fly out of here with whatever designs the children want to put on it, and when it reaches its next stop, it gets cleaned off and off it goes to its next facility. So we'd love to see you there. The Desert Sun are coming out to sponsor it for us, and we also have a couple of local radio stations who are doing PSAs this week for us. We'll have light refreshments. It should be a fun event, and we would love to see you there. I'll leave some information on it up there if you're interested. If any of the commissioners are going to come, please give me a call so that I know you're
Thank you, Monica.
Monica, what day is that?
Saturday,
This Saturday?
this Saturday,
Thank
9
you.
till 12.
Monica, has this been publicized?
It's been very short notice for us, but we've had it in all the aviation press newspapers this week. It's been in AIN, it's been in ProPilot. We put it together on about a 3 to 4 week notice this year. Next year we're going to do it again. They were in Scottsdale at our base last Saturday. It was a good event. They're coming here next, then they're off to San Diego and some of LA Basin airports too.
Okay, great. Good cause. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, moving along. Accepting approval of the minutes. Your motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Introductions?
No, sir.
None. Okay.
Well, I do have one introduction. Mark
Okay.
Shute from our office was in an accident about 6 weeks ago, a pretty serious accident. He is back part-time, is sporting some facial hair, and
Can't see. Oh, there.
he's got
It's
to
covered with
use
the
a
hair.
wheelchair for the time being, but he's healing and getting better.
Yeah. Glad to see it.
Welcome back.
That's a little drastic thing to lose weight, though. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, election of officers, I guess you've seen this on the agenda. This is something we need to talk about because we're not going to have the election this month. It needs to be first month of the fiscal year, which is next month. This was something David Reddy said must happen. So now an issue's come up, and maybe now it's a good time to talk about it regarding the July meeting. There's been some discussion, do we need a July meeting? We're dark in August anyway. That would leave us dark in 2 months and not having the installation of the officers till September. Anybody, I don't know what the attendance will be in July. It's summer, people want to get out of town, but let's hear some people think.
It's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't usually have the installation until September anyway.
No, not July.
July.
There have been times where we didn't because of
Yeah.
appointments.
Right.
Assuming that is acceptable to defer it, but the question on the table is, are people going to attend a July meeting?
And what important information is there for July's meeting? We don't know that
Yet to be
yet.
determined.
Right.
Let's assume there is nothing for agenda items. The question to the commission was, are people still going to be in attendance?
You'll have new airport commissioners as well.
And we will
We will have new airport commissioners who are prepared to come in July. We have to let them know that we're putting it off.
I just have a question, and Tom should know this. You made a couple of us work really hard going through the on-call design teams.
The SOQ.
And it was a fairly tight schedule, so I was assuming we were gonna be making a recommendation to the council sometime sooner than September.
Yeah, the commission doesn't have the role in the final. It's already in the process, so the process will dictate. That wouldn't require me.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thanks for mentioning that.
What about taking off July instead of August? Anybody have thoughts on that? No?
Can you check who's going to be here in August, or?
That's what.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
So take a roll call. Who's going to be here?
Yeah, raise your hand if you can be here in July. Okay. How about August? Okay. Well, it seems like a lot of people can be here in July. Let's have a July meeting. Let's just do it. I mean, the new commissioners will be their first meeting. Looking forward to it. I think that's a good reason in and of itself. We'll get the election out of the way, and all right. So nothing this month, but next month. Okay. Presentations.
First item, Air Museum News, and we're going to defer this to one of our commissioners.
Thank you, Tom. You probably heard me say I'm a longtime member of the Airport Museum. I'm out there quite a bit. And I've asked Fred Bell, director of the museum, to come over and give us an update on what's going on. There's been a lot happening here in the last several months. But before I ask Fred to update us, I got a little history I want to tell you about. For those of us old enough to remember Lawrence Welk, do you recall? You may recall over the many years that he was on TV, over that time, he had several, what do you call it, Champagne Ladies, singers, dancers, featured on the program. And one of the first Champagne Ladies was a very young singer, dancer, Hollywood actor named Roberta Lynn. Remember her?
Yeah, she does.
Yes, she does.
I know her.
And it just so happens that Roberta Lynn is Fred's mother.
Is that right?
Hey, you connected the dots.
Are you serious? That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I met her several months ago at Calhoun Theater. She was there. And she's now in her 80s, living in Rancho Mirage.
Well,
And
I recorded I have the reel to reel I told you. I recorded every Marcella show in the 50s.
well, I watch it every week on the reruns.
So I have the
Anyway,
singing.
anyway, Fred, I hope I didn't embarrass you too much.
Yeah, Fred, come on over. So I've got a couple.
Well, Fred, does that mean you're gonna do a little dance for us?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing about my mom is in Palm Springs, is I actually went to elementary school here. I went to Catherine Finchy, so I go back, probably about 40 years. She has a star down at the library, but because of her stage name and that's my father's name, and our given name, that people don't connect the dots very often. But that is true. I can confirm it. Well, the reason I came over this morning was I wanted to thank you, and I don't know, are those links for us?
Yes, I put them up there for you. So
Okay.
you want to play them first, or you want to?
Why don't you play them first?
Not in your
Go
eye.
ahead.
The Palm Springs Air Museum announces the most anticipated unveiling in our 20-year history. The all-new Major General Kenneth P. Miles hangar, featuring one of the largest collections of aircraft from Vietnam, Korean and Cold Wars. Explore the Presidential Aviation Exhibit. Get up close with a Presidential F-102 and EA-6B Prowler recently retired off the carrier Bush. Pay tribute to our lost servicemen. Celebrate a part of our living history. For more information, palmspringsairmuseum.org.
That's our ad for next year, actually. And I think there's one other link up there.
No motors, no parachute. No motors, no parachutes, and no second chances. The Palm Springs Air Museum presents a one-of-a-kind exhibit of glider planes used in 8 of the largest Allied assaults in World War II, including the eve of D-Day, on distant battlefield, in do-or-die missions. This is their untold story. Norman Lawrence Sirota, Silent Waves, Gliders on D-Day, palmspringsairmuseum.org.
And that's our glider exhibit. We had, here we go, hello.
Plug it in. Make this one real thing.
Keep working away. We can hear you without it. Check, there we go. My mom was a singer, I should have had it. So first of all, I want to thank you. We were able to go for about 3 years from when I presented that. Remember that little, for those of you who were there, that little flat board sheet that we brought in, and we said, okay, these are the drawings of what we want to do. And about $2.5 million later, and with Ken's name on it, Ken Miles, we've been able to finish that hangar. For a nonprofit that's Lightspeed, the city helped us a great deal, and you guys were fantastic, and so we want to thank you. We have, it's a 20,000-foot building with 18,200 square feet of usable space. There's 9 aircraft in there right now. We have about 4 more in the pipe that will go in various areas of the property. We're going to start swapping out the aircraft out them. And so there's one aircraft that will go out there and one will come off and be painted and then go back out because they're starting to look a little long in the tooth from this wonderful sun and heat that we get. And then you saw that particular first video that's our ad for next year. We're already working on a program for next year. We do about 30 programs a year. The second one is the Sirota Glider exhibit, which is an actual cargo section from a CG-4A glider. These gliders were used at D-Day. They suffered about anywhere from 50 to 80% casualties when they went in. They're very, very dangerous. And the gentleman pictured, Norman Sirota, was actually seriously injured in a glider and didn't get to deploy with his unit. His unit was completely wiped out. So he sponsored this exhibit. The glider is there now. That'll be one of our key exhibits as we go forward next year. But we wanted to thank you for your help. It would not have happened if you guys hadn't had the foresight to turn us loose and not tell us that we were out of our minds, that we were going to build another hangar. You know, Bob, that hangar was actually laid out in 1998.
Part of the original plan?
Part of the original plan. And I've been on the board 16 years. To be able to finish it on watch and get it done for Bob. I knew Bob, and many of you maybe did know Bob Pond, and actually see his vision finished. Not as much as I know he would have liked. He probably would want more World War II airplanes in there. He wasn't a big jet guy. But the reality of our situation is that we have to update, we'll continue to update the collection to stay current because we have to keep the kids interested from an educational standpoint. So we'll continue to modernize.
The construction is not done though, right? You've got more road work.
We have the hangar and all of the site flat work is finished. We're in the process of going through Caltrans to try to get, and I say try, underline try because you never know with Caltrans, a right in, right out street bowl at the south end of the property, which was on the original plan that we showed you.
Right.
The challenge will be, you know, Caltrans is always a bit of fun. So
I wanted to show them, this is real
Yeah.
important. Let's refer to the aerial map. Here's the Air Museum. Their property boundary goes all the way up to here. Part of our arrangement, if you remember, for those that sat on the commission at the time, the incentive for the airport to participate in this is the road they're putting in here, that is a lateral road going into the Gene Autry. We eventually want to develop this, so that road will be actually the entrance road for all the future hangars and corporate and general aviation activities. So it's a partnership, and we appreciate that.
yeah, with the deal on that, to refresh everyone's memory, is we put the money out and then we do a reimbursement on the leasehold over time with the lease. We have finished the flat work section of that. In other words, we've finished it and you have fully reimbursed us. So we're working on the road now, and that's a question of how long it will take us to get through the state. I'm hoping it won't be too difficult because this is a fairly simple road, but you just never know.
It takes it's part of the process.
Yeah.
So we thank you for that very much.
You're very welcome, and while I'm here, anybody have any questions that I can answer, or?
Yeah, question. How many people come through the museum on an annual basis?
Roughly
Every
right
time
now.
I'm there, it is crowded.
Yeah, probably anywhere from about 100 to 125,000 depending on the year. We're running about 10% ahead right now on an annualized basis. That's on a calendar year basis. Our fiscal closes August 31st, so we operate on a September to August fiscal year. On a calendar year, we're running about 10% ahead, and that's kind of how we do all of our budgeting, is on a calendar year, not on a fiscal. So we'll have to see how the rest of this works out. We have continued to run ahead. I'm a little worried about this heat and you know what it does to us, but the good news is we have been covering our operating expenses, our labor, and our utilities since last summer. The 7 years that I've been wrestling with this animal, the one thing I've been trying to do is cover our core costs 11 or 12 months out of the year, because that means you're viable. And I can tell you that this last year we actually including the summer months, which is a huge feat for us and a lot of work. So that's good news, and I think that's just a testament to the growth of the airport, the growth of the destination, and the venue is a little bit bigger. Yes.
Since you already alluded to state regulations that we all love so much here in California, could you comment on why you can't walk from one hangar into the new hangar?
That's a building code. And unfortunately, if we punch a hole in that wall, the entire facility has to come up to ADA, Title 24, seismic. It just opens up a Pandora's box because they've restricted what you can do as far as remodels. When we costed that, first of all, some of the design changes are not feasible without literally tearing apart sections in the hangar. We can't do it as far as door openings and things like that, wider door openings than what were originally designed. And the cost was incredibly prohibitive. It was upwards of about $300,000. I wish we could do it, but when we looked at it, we just went, for $300,000, and that's an estimate. When we get into it, it will be even worse. We just went, it's tough enough to raise 2.5. To try to go for 3 would have been really tough. It was very hard to raise the $2.5 million. The one thing I am proud of, though, is that that's all private money. There's a very little public money in it. The only public money is in the actual that you guys put in is in the flat work on some of the land improvements.
But you're willing to take donations?
If any of you feel that you have a spare $500,000 laying around, just write me a check.
Or just become a member.
I'll punch a hole.
Fred, because of my background in titles, there is some hardship cases that you can apply for. When it costs prohibitively over about $100,000, and it has to do with the ADA requirements, there is some hardship.
We looked at that. We looked at that, and now that I have the building built, I might go back and debate it with your building department. But with the city's building department. But the reality of it is that there are some things that you just can't get around, and it's not just ADA. It was Title 24 and a number of other things that I just didn't think we could get waivers on, and it would have slowed the project down. But we couldn't. We wanted to get the project done as quickly as possible. Have the project sit for 5 or 6 years because we're chasing an opening, and we can go back now to the city honestly at some point and say we want to remodel and we want to open a hole and have that conversation in a different environment. That's a different story. And we probably will do that.
Let me know.
I will. I'll take you up on it. The one thing I would offer, and I know I don't want to take up any more of your schedule, is if you'd like to do a meeting or the installation at the museum, we have great AV, and you can meet in that hangar. And I think we got enough room to handle it. In fact, we might actually be able to spread out a little bit compared to this. So
what about the air conditioning?
And the air conditioning looks good. So you're more than welcome if at some point you want to do a field trip and do a meeting over there. We'd love to have you. And again, thank you for everyone's support. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred. Congratulations.
Little soft shoe.
There we go.
Okay, proceed. Our next item is PFC application. Brian Elliott, are you still there?
Good morning, Tom. Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Brian Elliott is with Recondo Associates. You remember we hired them for about $300,000 under contract to take the airport through the passenger facility charge application. That is doing 2 things. It's actually helping finance and pay for the ticketing renovation project, and it's also reimbursing our general fund a certain amount of money for past projects. So, Brian, go ahead. I know he's in Salt Lake City. He was supposed to be here this morning, but apparently thunderstorms, Brian, prevented you from making the connection from Atlanta?
Yes, Tom, and Commissioners, I'm very sorry I wasn't able to make it in last night. Thunderstorms in Atlanta and also Salt Lake City made me miss that evening connection over to Palm Springs. So I appreciate you bearing with me this morning to allow me to join you by phone. Tom asked me to give a brief overview of our firm, our work with PFCs, and then dive into the process of the PFC program that's prescribed by federal law. Recondo Associates is an aviation consultancy firm, aviation, airport work existence since 1996, and our financial practice, which I'm a part of, actually started in 1999. And we do these types of PSC programs. We help airports across the country navigate their way through the FAA application process and also assist with the administration of the PSC program. We're very fortunate to have been selected by the City of Palm Springs last fall to provide consultancy services related to the PSC program, your customer facility charge, rental car program, as well as assist with any bond feasibility analysis that may come out of the terminal project. So we're very delighted and very pleased to have the opportunity to work with Tom and Mark and everyone there at Palm Springs. A little bit about the history of the PSC program. As you may know, the passenger facility charge program was enacted by Congress in 1990. The City of Palm Springs was actually one of the first in the United States, if not the first, airport sponsors to take advantage of this locally imposed fee. And I put heavy emphasis on that because it is a program that is truly a local initiative. And airport sponsors, which the City of Palm Springs is, makes the decision whether to impose this fee. However, it is over the umbrella of a number of federal regulations related to how an airport initially sets up its PSC program, as well as the eligibility of the projects that airports are able to go forward with in terms of collecting funds for. When the program started back in 1990, airports could charge up to $3 per eligible passenger. It was later amended to increase that to $4.50, and of course Palm Springs is collecting at the $4.50 level and has been since that congressional action in early 2000s allowed that increase to $4.50. You, the city, and the airport have been utilizing those revenues, of course, to buy down its debt service associated with the construction of the Bono terminal that was constructed several years ago. So you're getting to the tail end of that PSC application process. You are obviously in need of a new, a renovated ticketing lane area in your terminal building and other improvements. And this application that is pending today picks up a number of those elements. I believe Tom is going to walk you through each of those. But let me just give you a little bit of insight first before I hand it off to Tom, is related to this FAA process. And it is prescriptive, it is stated in federal law, and where we've been working with the airport, its staff, and its financial advisor over the past 5 to 6 months is pulling together all the necessary data and information to put this package together that first has to go to your airlines serving your airport. It has to also, the scope and magnitude of the project has to be put out, if you will, for public notice to allow the public an opportunity to comment on the application. And so where you are today is that all of this information has been gathered, documented. It has been reviewed by city staff. City council has had action on the public notice process, and now the procedure is to move forward with an airline consultation meeting. Today, we'll be having that after lunch there in Palm Springs. The public notice gets posted. There's an opportunity for 30 days for the public to comment on the application. And then from the airline perspective, after today's meeting, the airlines have 30 days to essentially comment, agree, or disagree on the contents of the application. At the close of that 30-day period, which would be towards the end of July, we gather any comments. We along with the city, address those comments. There's not any back and forth related to that. We just have to document to the FAA in your application how the comments were addressed. We pull together the application. It's submitted to the FAA for review and then acceptance. And if that application, if things move along as we anticipate that they will, that application will be filed in late August, early September, and a decision will be made by the FAA by the end of the year. They have about 120 days in terms of its, again, regulatory, established by regulation, about 120 days to process an application submitted by an airport sponsor. So that's the overview, if you will, of the overall process and where we are at this particular point in time. And so this public notice that is before you today, the FAA has indicated in its regulations that there are 4 ways an airport sponsor can fulfill the notice requirements, and one of which is posting that paper or the notice on an airport sponsor's website, and certainly your meeting being televised and being recorded is another means for public information distribution, dissemination as well. So if there is comments from the public, first they would go to the website, pull down the information, review it, and if they have comments, they would come into Tom. Tom would record them, and we would address those in the application process going forward. So
Very well done. We know there's some ambient noise. You'll be boarding shortly?
I'm sorry, I missed that comment.
Very, very nicely done. Are you boarding shortly?
I will be boarding an airplane in about another hour.
Oh, hour. Okay, so we're good. So I'm going to segue into the presentation here, and I apologize. We tried the best, Nadia, to format this, right? You took. Yeah, you tried. Can everyone see it all right? But essentially, in a nutshell, and I'm going to talk loud. I apologize. There are 16 projects incorporated into this, and the most prominent, of course, is the ticketing project itself. But what we're trying to do, aside from the ticketing project, is we're trying to reimburse the airport fund for all past FAA projects. How many total FAA projects?
12.
12 of the 16? Yes. And we remember, if you remember, we pay 10% of those grants, right? They give us 90%, and we have to fund 10%. So it is permissible under the law and the regulation to ask in arrearages for the reimbursement of that 10%. And that's assuming that the airlines agree. We don't see any reason why, because that funding, of course, will be within the... Hey, Brian?
Yes.
You might want to mute until you hear me ask you perhaps a question that helps. Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes, I will do that.
Very good. So with that, this is actually a listing of the project, which will be posted on our website. Again, apologize for it, but if you look back, we remember when we did our runway overlay. That was a massive project. It included the milling, the crack repair, the installation of pavement reinforcement mesh. That's our smaller runway. We did that in about 2007. Interesting thing about that, there had never been mesh introduced at the airport for under the pavement, and we did at that time. That was the first project, and we did that to extend the useful life of that. So far, so good. Very little signs of any reflective cracking and so forth. New lighting and signage as well. So that project eligibility, we are eligible to reimburse ourselves. Total project cost was about $2 million, so we'll get a couple $100,000 back for that project. Right, Mark? Is that the 10% that's on there, or is that the?
We'll get back $97,430.
97,400. Okay, very good. So next project is to construct and rehabilitate taxiways. Pretty much the same thing. Bituminous concrete surface, et cetera, et cetera. Our reimbursement amount on that will be how much?
$83,000.
$83,000. It's, hey, it adds up. Right? Penny saved, penny earned. The next one is construct terminal building improvements. And Mark, go ahead and tell what the reimbursement. This was an FAA grant number 43 for the construction of the 8-gate, 20,000 square foot regional concourse. Remember that back in 2008-ish? And so our reimbursement on that will be how much?
$145,000.
$145,000. Okay. Next is a perimeter fence rehabilitation. We've got 5.6 miles of fencing. We delineated at that time about 650 linear feet. Well, I'm sorry, more than a couple thousand feet of the fence needed repair. And then we also constructed 650 linear feet, Monica, right? You weren't here at the time, but we put that block wall in between the old hangar and Signature. We did that for a couple of reasons. to help our security program. A vehicle cannot penetrate that. And secondly, we wanted to be good neighbors with the Sunmore and so forth. That helps mitigate a lot of the run-up sound and that emanates from Signature's ramp. We introduced some security identification within our fence line and so forth. What's the reimbursement on that one, Mark?
$170,000.
$170,000. You get bigger. Install ground radar system. As I explained years ago, for those of you that were here, we're one of the few airports in the country that take advantage of technology that's radar-based on the airport, and that helps protect that 5.6 miles of perimeter fencing. And it's working great today. Total reimbursement on that, Mark?
$91,000.
$91,000, okay. Design and construct terminal apron rehab. Remember 3-4 years ago we did our complete terminal apron rehabilitation of all the pavement. Remember that? We pulled that project off. There was really no disruption to the airport airlines. We had about 12 phases in that. Everyone did a great job to make sure that came out safely and efficiently. That was a big number. So hopefully, what's the number, Mark, of reimbursement?
$1,175,000.
Design and construct taxiway Gulf rehabilitation. That's our general aviation. Let's talk about that. People, we put so much focus on the airlines themselves, but general and corporate aviation, right, Monica? That's over on your territory. But we have taxiway Gulf over by Signature right here. That taxiway feeds the hangars, the fuel farm, all these tenants here. Our 2 corporate hangars where the future U.S. Customs are going right between that and some other buildings there. And we rebuilt that pavement. It's good for a good 20 years. Right. So that was a small one, Mark. What's the reimbursement?
Yeah, for that design it was $7,000.
Well, let's not get that one. Forget that one. Design and construct the big runway. Our main air carrier runway, that was a mega project. Yeah, go ahead. We did not use mesh on that because this was primarily an overlay grooving of the new. We did groove the runway because FAA regulations call for runways to be grooved. It hadn't been grooved for years. It was pretty much grandfathered. It is now grooved, and that's important for the braking coefficient on aircraft. And let's see here. Nothing else real fancy about it other than the installation of taxiway edge lights and signs and grooving and the typical milling. And I think I brought the core sample in previous meetings to show you what we did. And the total reimbursement on that one.
$1,148,000.
So design and install flight information FIT system. In our, you remember our technology project a couple of years back? We did we replaced our paging system, our flight information display system, and our security access control system, and we introduced some biometrics and so forth to keep up with that. That was a very good project. So that wasn't a real high ticket, but let's see here, make sure I'm not missing anything on that. So yeah, public address, so forth, upgrade highway. Mark, what was the reimbursement of that?
$148,000.
$148,000. Design and install exit lane security door, right? Our revolving door. Remember we did that for security purposes, to prevent backflow, which periodically would happen. We would, of course, have to set personnel. And that does 2 things. It helps enforce our security, and secondly, do you notice the terminal is more consistently cooler? You notice that? Now, there's 2 reasons for that. The door itself, remember that thing used to open up while 100 passengers came? All the dust in the air, even on the hot days like this, doesn't do that anymore. So that's a vacuum seal. Plus, we've done a lot of work on our chillers and the cogen as well. The Norm King cogen plant. remember we spent about $3.1 million to pay for the capital upgrade of that after 20 years. So, combination of things. Design and construct security access control system upgrade. Well, that's part of the paging and the FID that I talked to. Design and construct airfield lighting upgrade. We're going to do that this summer. We're designing that. That will be out to bid in the next week or 2. We're doing some real critical electrical vault work to replace regulators that are old and tired in a lot of the home run. And we're going to change from incandescent to LED lighting to, again, complete our airfield. We're going to save a lot of electricity and be able to have a much more reliable system out there. That's occurring this summer. And the total reimbursement, Mark?
Total reimbursement for those last 2 projects, $455,000.
Okay. Wonderful. Now, being this is a new project, that is a new project, the others were all already completed. Design, construct, finance, terminal building improvements. Our big upcoming project, which is still undergoing design and development. And I was going to give you an update at the end here, but an enormous amount of coordination with the airlines. So imagine remodeling a space where you have all of the competing fast food restaurants, and every one of them have their own unique needs. So we have a very complex project. The amount of time and effort that the design team and myself and staff are spending to make sure that all the airlines are adequately treated, fairly treated. Everybody has no preferential treatment. We're going through that now, and that's going very well. And I got to compliment our design team for helping coordinate that and so forth. As you know, I don't want to get into that project, but we've talked about it, and I'll give you an update at the end of my reports. But that is, phase 1 is occurring this year. Phase 2, the big phase 2, will be happening next year. So that, Mark, that's not a reimbursement, neither. Well, what do we do? We're adding our 10% in on that, right?
Well, our 10% would be from grants, so that this is primarily a PFC project. So when you break that down, we're looking at the capital of that portion of the project, about $30 million.
$30 million.
So, and then over the period of time, there's going to be about $21 million in interest paid. So grand total of this project with capital plus interest is about a $51 million project.
Now, the 10% we're paying on we're going to spend, I think we're going to get about $8 million in round figures from FA. Did we include that 10% on that?
Yes.
We did. Okay, so 10% of that, that's about $1 million. It's $9,000,000, $8,800,000. Brian, can you hear okay? So far, so
yes, I was just going to say, if you have the chart, the description table up on the screen, to date, the airport has received about $1.6 million in AIP, and that is funding, and AIP is Airport Improvement Program from the FAA, grant from the FAA, to pay for the design. Over the course of the next year to year and a half, the airport anticipates receiving about $5.4 million in Airport Improvement Program funds to be utilized for what is termed enabling projects associated with the first phase of work. The PFC is broken into several phases. One is PAYGO, which is pay as you go, collect as you go, roughly $715,000. And then based on information provided by the city's financial advisor, the anticipated bond capital and interest, based on the very preliminary level of where the project is today, the bond capital is around $29.4 million, and the bond interest is around $21.2 million. Again, those estimates are from the airport's financial advisor. The city of Palm Springs, there are elements of the project that are not eligible for PFC, that are not eligible for Airport Improvement Grant Program funds. It's $460,000. And so those projects that the airport is reimbursing itself for, that Tom just covered, a portion of those funds would be allocated or anticipated to be allocated in the amount of $460,000 to make the total project cost right now, preliminary total project cost of $58.8 million.
well, that concludes. Are there any questions on the this is a presentation, so we can.
Right, yeah, I have, sure, yeah. Well, first of all, what was the total reimbursement? I never heard the total. Was it total?
Mark, the total reimbursement is about what?
Total reimbursement from prior projects, $4.5 million.
$4.5 million.
The time lag, I'm noticing some of these projects go back into, what is it, 2008 or something like that, and some of them are current, like what we're doing right now. How does that work? Why is there?
Because they're eligible projects and it's allowable under the regulation.
I understand they're allowable.
It's a look back,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, could we have not reimbursed ourselves earlier, I guess is.
No, because we weren't doing a new PFC.
We couldn't under the old program, so it had to be under the new application.
No,
This is a very arduous and expensive $300,000 for the condo.
Okay, yeah, explain it then.
We're doing a new PFC, so
Yeah,
we're
new
taking
PFC, got it. Okay. Yeah, right. So it's interfunded contract.
That concludes, Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you, you'll be here in time for the meeting at 1.
Airline meeting's at 1 o'clock, and again, thank you all very much for allowing me to join by phone, and I hope to meet each of you in the not too distant future. So thank you again.
So we'll see you, hopefully you're on time, and we'll see you shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Steve, could you hang up? Could you hang your phone up here, Steve?
Phone.
You have to hang the phone up. Right here.
Plug it.
Pull the plug or hang the phone, Steve, right now.
I get to it.
Throw it down. Don't make a long distance call by accident.
It's probably, there should be a power on there. Can you unplug it?
I have one. I plugged a communication line, should be done.
No, it's still.
So anyway, as Fred does that concludes.
That's off. Continue on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, because of the time, I thought we'd be doing much better. I think we're gonna forego the other 2 items and save that for July if we need to fill it.
That's fine. You want to go to your last item under presentations?
Well, I think maybe you should start that discussion.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, we have 4 outgoing commissioners this month, I'm sorry to say, but we'll miss them all. Fred, Rick, Guillermo, and Robert. And, and so we want to recognize all of you, and Tom has
The traditional plaque.
Traditional
gold-plated plaque.
if you want to.
And if you ever want to just crack it open, there might be something.
There's $100 bills.
It's pretty simple. It has the name of each of them, and it says recognizes the airport commissioner, and for the dedicated service to the Palm Springs International Airport. Well, actually, probably that's.
Into the box. Into the box.
So I would like to just take a moment to say that the Airport Commission, I brag about it often. We have 19 members. It's turned over several times, and we have just.
all here today.
And
We're all here.
it's amazing, and I know we're on TV, and for those of you watching and all the public, but these men and women give their time and talent and effort, and the discussions and the ability to do that with such vigor is really refreshing. And I know the 4 that are going, and we've had a lot of discussions off air and so forth, and it's just been a pleasure with all of you. And why don't you take a couple minutes to go around the table and.
It was truly an honor to serve in this commission. I'm very thankful for the commissioners for sharing their knowledge and for bringing these gifts to the table, and not only to the table but to the community, to the Coachella Valley. I'm also very pleased with the airport administration as well and the city for fostering an environment of respect and always moving forward. I know we disagree at times, but we all come together as a community here. So I'm very, very lucky, and I look forward serving and in other ways. And also, my great satisfaction is to see every time I see a person say, "I'm flying out of Palm Springs," or "I'm right at Palm Springs Airport." So I'll continue that as a mission as well.
Thank you. Guillermo is the most seasoned traveler. This guy goes all over the world, and he'll send you a text. He's sitting in Santiago or wherever, and say, "Look at this and that." You've been just real helpful in that vein to say, "Listen, what about this? What about that?" So thank you. Keep it up too. Just because you're not a commissioner.
Well, we're truly at international airport, and so we'll keep it.
Thank you for all of your.
Keep enhancing the experience.
Thank you. Thanks for your help. Next.
I guess I'm next. It has been a pleasure, especially being part of the Phase 1 design and all the planning we've done over the last 6 years. As many of you know, I spend an additional maybe 3 hours a week here working the information desk, and so I get to see a lot of the, I get to see stuff that the commissioners don't see who are here for an hour and a half a month. And it's nice to see the fine working that goes on beyond your site as we sit at the information desk and help the travelers to help continue to make this a very, very friendly airport. And the staff has been great, and it's always been a pleasure, especially with Chief Technician Nadia, who is in charge, of course, of airport parking punching. It has been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you.
Robert?
Wow. Well, I fully expected to learn a lot about the airport and how it works, and I did, and I wasn't disappointed in that at all. The thing that surprised me was how much I learned about how the whole valley works, certainly. And I learned a lot about how the valley works, how things are funded, the kind of challenges we're facing as a community. A lot of things were real disclosures to me, so that's been a real treat. I've served on about 30 boards and commissions in my life, and I've said it before to Tom, and I'll say it again, I've never served on a board where things were so well organized. We never get surprised. If there's an issue comes up, it's identified, we see all the options and the benefits of each, and we get to make an informed decision. I think it's just been really a pleasure to serve with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Rick.
Everyone around this table has some interest in aviation or what's going on in the business. Some are own planes, some are pilots, and some have flown a lot, and a lot of other things. My interest in aviation goes back to my career with Chevron. I'm 30 years in the oil industry, and most of my career with Chevron was their overseas operations. And I was relocated 10 times in 30 years, and I flew, I spent a lot of time in Iran. In my career, I was on almost every commercial plane that had been built, from the biggest to the smallest. And when you're out in the oil fields of Iran, you may be in a 4-passenger plane, and the pilot has to radio ahead and say, "Get the goats off the runway, we're landing." So lots of interesting things that have transpired. And it's interesting to have been on this commission for a little over 3.5 years, and to understand the inner workings and the things that were discussed today, the financial matters and how these things come about. And certainly everything's very well organized, very presented very well. And I appreciate the new video system that we have here too. So anyway, it's been a great pleasure. And kind of the bottom line is, it was 122 degrees yesterday. I've had a place in Hawaii for 22 years, and it is way, way, way underutilized. And guess where I'm going to be spending a lot of time? Good for you. Anyway, thank you very much.
And just as an aside, after you leave, we're planning a tour of 29 Palms Base. It's too bad you can't.
Yeah, right.
Rick tried so many times to get us to go. We appreciate your efforts. That's right. Maybe we will still with you.
We figure Henry's on point now about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all again, and congratulations.
You got the van at least, right, Henry? We got the transportation.
Okay, moving along. We got to keep it moving here. City manager report, none. David Reddy's not here today, so that's the budget report. Jeff, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. You have before you the May report, and as promised, the numbers are coming in quite strong. So this is what we've been anticipating for quite some time now. You'll see that all of our indicators on page 1, the revenue report, very strong. I will point out down there, you might be a little concerned looking at that on-airport car rental number. They're down to the last line in the major categories. That does reflect the application of some adjustments due to the minimum annual guarantee language, where the car rental agencies had basically over-advanced money to us, and now we're starting to true up, and the money comes back. So we are on track with the projection that you'll see there on the page.
How about the land rental budget, which is also
Art, can you comment why what's going on with land rental?
The second line?
Yes.
We had budgeted some things that didn't come to pass with that plan, so, prior years have been a little better. We expect to finish pretty well at the same as we did last year, but we had some adjustments, some increases that we thought might happen when we put the budget together, and they did not materialize.
Isn't it good to have Mark back?
Especially for you.
He's the one that really does all.
We know that.
Gotta be so quick to say, you know that. Okay, turning over to page 3, I'd like to note right there, kind of in the middle of the page, we heard our consultant, Brian, talk about the PFC debt service and the way the existing bonds work. Covenants require that we get additional money. We're to pay down that principal faster. And so as part of the annual process we've had, we've been paying off about $1 million a year extra. But as you also heard in the discussion, what will be happening with the new PFC process, we'll be paying off the remainder of the old bonds as we go into the PFC package. Looking over to page 4, I'll direct your attention right to the middle of the page there. These are really exciting numbers right here in the middle. See our surplus actuals to date sitting at just under $1.8 million for the airport operations, and the projection slips down a little bit. But if you look at that number, and we don't often look at comparing these two together, combining them, but right below that for the 416 Capital Projects Fund, that deficit number of 826,000, really this capital fund is really a subset of the operations. The only way we get money for capital is from the FAA projects or for self-funding. And the third one now is reimbursement for the old projects. So you'll recall, as part of the new budget, we're anticipating getting about $1.5 million of reimbursements in next year's budget as part of that PFC project. That's where that money has to come from. All of the monies that get spent in the airport are airport generated. So this is truly an enterprise operation. But if you look at those two together, we have a net positive surplus at this point of the year of about 800,000. I don't recall seeing that kind of positive this early in the year. Again, there's a couple numbers I'll point out down below. On the cash funds, and for newer commissioners, I'll remind you, the CFC, that's the customer facility charge. We're sitting on $16.5 million in cash. We're bringing about $2 million a year. Again, that's part of the seed money, if you will, for these next round of projects that, with the airport master plan. If you look at unrestricted cash balance, we're sitting on $4.7 million. We do anticipate that we'll be finishing the year around $4.75 million. That's right where we've been all year long. With that, I'll entertain any questions from the commissioners.
Any questions?
Oh, one other thing. And the budget just passed, was presented to the city council as a public hearing. I mentioned to you the last meeting, the council had the option of passing the budget at that time, or the next meeting, which is tonight, or a special meeting. They chose to pass the budget as presented at the public hearing. So that's good news.
It is good news.
We don't have the final numbers because I told you we have the insurance issue is still in play. They adopted the budget with giving staff direction on going ahead and putting a $2 million package of insurances together. We're finalizing that, so we'll be tweaking the final numbers on the budget. But basically, you have a balanced budget, and that's where we want to be.
Okay, and the security will be in force beginning of next fiscal year as per the
Well,
budget?
yes, thank you. The 4 additional police officers were also approved as part of the budget.
rare that we get over an hour, so just real quickly. Anyone here from the general public, do you have parking tickets on you? Anybody? Nobody parked? Anyone? Nobody parked? Oh, you're all taken care of. So free parking for anyone that attends the meeting. You bring the ticket, we got a sign on the door. We also are including it in on the header for our meetings to make sure everybody. So if there's anyone.
So if we plan our flights during one of these meetings.
They're only good for a couple of hours, so.
If you want to do that in your position, do it.
If that gets you flying to Palm Springs, sure.
So, let's see, projects upstate ticketing enabling, I give you an overview there. Taxiway Juliet, the paving, the electrical project in design and going to be going on to bid very soon. The car rental project, we are in the middle of an SOQ for consulting engineer. Thank you. Who's the other one serving on that? Al and so we're still in that process. It'll be several weeks. We're going to wait till the outcome of that and see if the current company that we've essentially negotiated a design agreement for the car rental improvements is part of that selection. There's a high likelihood they could continue that project. If they're not, then we're going to renegotiate with one of the new firms. So that is proceeding. Thank you for your time. I hope you find it very interesting.
It takes a lot of time.
Yes. It does.
Fun. It's always fun.
So stats, we're still 4.5% up year over year, which is a good thing. Summer seems, it's too early to know if summer is.
How are we as far as employments and stuff?
Pardon me?
How are we as far as traffic employments?
4.5% over last year.
Decent.
We don't know how summer's gonna pan out.
No. Seasonal.
That concludes my report.
Okay, any commissioner issues?
Those of you who look at the paper saw that Phoenix had to cancel flights because of heat.
Yeah.
And some of the flights out of here were canceled, but it wasn't because of heat here, is that correct?
Well, the Phoenix airport didn't cancel the flight.
I'm sorry. The airline at Phoenix.
And I think that's the important thing is the misnomer is that the airports shrivel up and shut down when there's extreme heat. We don't. We are fully operational. There were hundreds of people that flew in and out. There were some airlines that had some operational restrictions with their corporate policy on that. Things like the employees working on a 150-degree pavement, perhaps. Some aircraft avionics have sensitivities when they're sitting out on the apron. Some aircraft. So there are some airlines that, for operational reasons, elect to do that. But airports remain fully operational.
No asphalt issues.
No, FAA standards have bituminous pavements at maybe about 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
And so when you have 122 out there, that's really not a restriction. The restriction, as Tom said, is more related to the airline,
operational,
specific aircraft like the RJs, the regional jets.
Yeah,
I have a limit of 119.
I got caught in that yesterday. We were in Portland for a week and coming home yesterday. Stopped in San Francisco, and the flight from San Francisco to here was supposed to leave at whatever 2-something, arrive at 4 o'clock. We found out that they canceled that flight, and we sat in San Francisco for 4 hours and didn't get here till almost 8 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that just retired from SkyWest flying RJs, and he said that they cannot fly if it's over 118 degrees. Because
some of the
well, yeah.
So just so everybody understands, the airplane can still fly in 120 degrees. It has nothing to do with density altitude, especially with jet aircraft. The reality is that almost every jet airplane has performance numbers, and those performance numbers are runway dictated. The manufacturer will only produce a certain amount of performance numbers, and that's generally up to 40 degrees Celsius, which is 120 degrees. Anything after that, the airplane's not certificate. It doesn't have a certificate to fly in that. So it's not that the airplane can't fly in it. It just it's not legal for it to do it. So when you hear things about density, altitude, and jet aircraft, just remember that that's not the reason why the airplanes are taking off.
And not all airlines will hear that.
And the other thing also to realize too, also is that landing isn't the problem. It's always predicated on takeoff.
Now, the runway was extended, what, 15, 17 years ago, and one of the primary reasons went from 8,500 feet to 10,000 was because of the density altitude. When air heats up, all those molecules are bumping and expanding. Cold air, they're cold and stay tighter together. So there's more density to cold air and less density to warm air. So the aircraft has to roll farther in order to get that push on the wing to create the high-low pressure. And that's what happens in performance. But that's why the PSP runway was extended years ago, was to help with that density altitude issue. And the fact that it was open operational, and some airlines have operational procedures.
Some airplanes.
Airplanes.
Have we closed down at all in the past time recently?
Closed down?
Yeah, because of heat issues.
That's
I know it's airline.
That's what I'm saying. We don't close down.
Not an airport. It is the airport issue. It's not.
Yeah, I get that.
So hasn't the airport closed because of low visibility, because we don't have the same landing?
Well, no, that's a different story.
Right.
Because fog, snow, having worked most of my career at airports with winter, the visibility, the runway visual range, when it's snowing 2 inches an hour or there's fog, there's, depending on the landing system of the airport, can vary from airport to airport. Some of the most reliable airports in the world are in Europe because they deal with fog every day, and they have Cat 3C, which essentially allows the aircraft to land at almost zero visibility. So there's all kinds of variations of that. The beauty is we have 350 days of sunshine a year. There are some anomalies, once or twice, where you have that moisture coming over the mountains that could cause some visibility issues, and it's rare. It did on a few occasions. Captain, hold your ground. Hold your ground. Another story for another day. But yeah, that happens sometimes. Now, a place like San Francisco, they have advanced landing systems, but being right on the ocean in Northern California, that gets real dicey sometimes. Then you have the separation when you have parallel runways. You have to have a 4,300 minimum feet separation in order to conduct simultaneous instrument approaching. Or you can have, if you get into the staggered approaches, that extra staggering creates additional delay times, and that's what the hubs in Denver when it snows hard, and San Francisco. But we've got 350 days of sunshine. It does get hot here. So that's very good dialogue.
Norm?
President Trump's proposed an air traffic control system reform, which really is based totally on Representative Schuster's proposal 2 or 3 years ago, which in turn was based on components first proposed by President Clinton. I'd like to request that at the next meeting, whenever that is, we get a briefing on the proposal with the potential for action if we wish to recommend a position to the City Council on it. And I know your industry ties, Tom, has quite a bit of information on it. I won't argue it right now, but I think it's a really important piece of legislation that is long overdue for this country. We're not even in keeping with similar world agreements. We're so far behind. Anyway.
Thanks, Norm. Any other commissioner issues? All right, let's finish up here. Council action, Penny?
If they either in the package.
Okay, correspondence? None? Receive and file? Everybody's got the addendums to the package. Any other comments? If not, we'll see you all in July. Have a nice school summer. Thank you all.